he was embarrassing Putin. So one way or another, he has been killed.
Well, let's speak now to Tim Marshall, journalist and foreign affairs expert. Good afternoon, Tim.
Good afternoon. Hello.
I mean, you've heard from the reaction there from
Yeah.
various Western leaders. There seems to be little doubt that Alexei Navalny is dead and that the Russian authorities are being held responsible in some way. Do we have any more information beyond that?
Yes, the story is that he was in court on Thursday. He was seen laughing and in good health, despite all the amount of time he's been in solitary confinement at times, and was in a very, very rough penal colony. If you think of a map of Russia, look at the center, there's Siberia, then go head north. By the time you get up into the Arctic Circle, that's where it is. And they said he went for a walk today, and then he came back, felt unwell, collapsed, and they were unable to resuscitate him. It could even be true, Kathy, but one way or another, he has been killed. Even if he wasn't murdered today, they have slowly murdered him. I'm reminded of the old maxim of Stalin that death solves all problems. No man, no problem. Because Putin had a problem with this guy. He was embarrassing Putin. So one way or another, he has been killed. And it's a tragic, tragic story of a flawed man, as all people are flawed, but incredibly brave, because I suspect he must have known that this would happen. His wife must have known. And there's this incredible love story as well with his wife, Yulia, who always stood by him, who flew back to Russia with him when they both knew he would be arrested when he landed. He subsequently was. And then they've had this incredible romantic relationship via email with their outpourings of love for each other. And as I said, I think they both knew this day would come. And for years and years. And he kept going even as things grew darker and darker. He shot to prominence in 2011 when there was those huge street protests, which I personally think was the dying light of freedoms and democracy in Russia, because it was big. That there were tens of thousands out on the streets. We've not seen anything like it, and I'll be very interested to see tonight and over the weekend if there are any demonstrations in Russia. I mean, there's a demonstration at the moment outside the Russian embassy in London. There's others going on outside embassies across the world, but Putin has so frightened the people that were prepared to stand up to him that it'll be a litmus test of how many people still are prepared to brave it. But
Indeed. Well,
after 20, sorry, Kathy, just briefly, because I didn't answer your question. After 2011, he kept going. He was then banned from standing for election 2018. He was then poisoned with Novichok, left the country and went back. I mean, that is incredible bravery.
well, and just finally, Tim, and briefly, if you would, the West has seen time and time again Putin's opponents and his critics dispatched in various different ways, quite often poisoned. And, there was a warning about Russian aggression, obviously, with the annexation of Crimea. On each occasion, the West has sort of condemned and held back. Are we now reaping the rewards of that?
In the wider sense, yes, because there was the invasion of Georgia. There was Russia going into the vacuum that was Syria, going into Ukraine in 2014. The various murders of politicians, Boris Nemtsov, for example, shot in Moscow, and but how I think it's only in the past 2 or 3 years that Western politicians have really woken up to what has been going on in Russia. I don't. This doesn't come as a surprise, perhaps, to them, but I do think they were very, very slow in working out Putin. Briefly, Yulia, his wife, is at the Munich Security Conference. It was at 2007 Munich Security Conference, and I remember Putin giving a speech, and in that speech, you could tell he was on a path. As early as that, you could tell. And I think we've only woken up in the past couple of years.
Yeah. Tim Marshall, thanks very much for joining us. Journalist and foreign affairs expert Tim Marshall there. Let's speak now to Evgeny Chichevarkin, who is a Russian entrepreneur and friend of Alexei Navalny. Good afternoon, Evgeny.
Good afternoon.
A sad day for you and his family, clearly.
Yeah, for sure.
Just describe, if you would, the Alexei you knew.
Um, he've been killed by Putin regime today or yesterday. We don't know 100% truth because they never tell truth. That's important to know. And they tried to kill him in 2020 with a nerve agent Novichok. He survived, and then he back to Russia for 3 years. One of the worst prison conditions, and about a year he was in a special, like a prison in prison. Uh, um, it's a proper torture for 3 years and death penalty in the end. Putin show all world, Western world, that he can do whatever he wants because the sanctions against Russia didn't make economy weak, and there is no tools that other governments have to stop Putin. He shows everybody that he can do whatever he wants.
Well, and tell me what you would like to happen now, because you know it's suggested that there should be accountability, but what do you want the world to do now with Putin?
First of all, it's hundreds of political prisoners in Russia, and I think it is Western leaders could use more efforts to push regime to leave them or send them to Western countries. And I think, to be honest, the only country who fight with the Putin on everyday basis, Ukraine. I think the Western world have to support Ukraine more and think about the sanctions, not against Russians, against Putin's money.
Yeah.
Because the sanctions, they took airplanes, villas, they blocked my account, they closed my accounts. I was kicked from Barclays, I was kicked from American banks that I lived 15 years. But it's easy to fight against me, who already left Russia 15 years ago. It's so difficult to fight against Putin with oil, gas, fertilizers, wood, and whatever.
Yeah. Evgeny, I wondered if you could tell us, clearly Navalny had astonishing bravery. Can you tell us if he expected that eventually Putin would kill him and how he coped with that?
After poisoning, he thought that regime will be a bit worried to do this thing again. And it was a lot of support from a lot of press in 2020, and he can't see him without Russia. He returned when his health was on a halfway back to normal, and he returned to Russia and straight away to prison. And yeah, he thought that Russian society will support him and more than it happens. But the regime moving from authoritarian to totalitarianism.
Yeah.
In regime like Russia now, or like North Korea or Belarus, there is no chance for political prisoners.
Evgeny Chizhvarkin, thank you very much for joining us and remembering your friend.